Hey everybody, iPenguin Pat here, and today we're going to talk about combat rating and set bonuses. There's no doubt that at some point you've had a situation where you have to choose between terrific combat rating or getting your set bonus.
Which one are you going to choose?
And it might not always be as easy a decision as it seems. So I'm going to give you some data and some easy tips on how to make the best choice. If you're just looking for a quick rule to follow and you don't want all the data mumbo jumbo behind it, this is going to be right for you about 95% of the time. If your combat rating is lower than the monsters you're fighting,
you're too low, climb.
It's almost always better to add more combat rating over set bonuses. And if your combat rating is equal to or above the combat rating of the monsters you're fighting, then it's almost always better to go with the set bonus.
You can pick up your bonus
Instead of adding more combat rating. If that's all you wanted and you don't care about all the numbers behind it, hit like and subscribe for getting the answer quick.
I guarantee you will go up 2 full rating points if you hire this guy.
Now, if you're not convinced and you want to know more, or you're interested in seeing the exceptions, then stick around and you'll see why this is the best advice you've gotten about combat rating and set bonuses.
I know what's better for him.
You have to understand how the combat rating system works in order to make the best decisions.
The rating system alone is very complicated.
When you fight a monster, Diablo Immortal compares your combat rating with the combat rating of the monster you're fighting, and based off of that, will either reduce or increase the damage taken or given.
I've been looking through these ratings charts you sent me.
So if you are at an equal combat rating with the monster that you are fighting, there is no increase or decrease. Everything happens exactly as you would expect. If your combat rating is above the combat rating of the monster, you get a small bonus to the amount of damage that you deal, and you get a small reduction to the damage taken. While the bonuses that you get for being above the combat rating of the monsters that you're fighting cap out at about 22%, which is pretty weak.
Way too low.
The penalty for being under the combat rating of the monsters that you're fighting is gigantic. You take exponentially more damage the further below the combat rating of the monsters that you're fighting. So for example, if you are around 350 combat rating below the monsters that you're fighting, you will take about 3 times the damage, and you'll only do about a quarter of the damage that you would normally do.
Of the people in this room, which one is A, wearing a spangly outfit, and B, not of use?
Which makes combat rating the single most important PvE stat in the game. Even somebody with a maxed out 7,500 resonance will get absolutely trashed by monsters that have way more combat rating than them. Because the penalty for high monster difficulty and being below the combat rating is so extreme, it's easy to see why most players would say that combat rating is the most important factor. Because just by swapping out one piece and breaking up my set, I was able to add more than 30% damage. And there's no set that can keep up with that. If you are already essentially maxed out on your primary gear, then your set items tend to be the primary casualty for increasing your combat rating.
The left-hand side is too low.
With the primary gear, you can just change the essence, so anytime you get better gear, you just swap it out. But with secondary gear, you can't just change which set you get, so you do have a tendency to have some extra gear lying around with better combat rating. Breaking up your sets tends to be the only real way to add combat rating quickly if you are free to play. Everything else is behind some kind of paywall. Your golden crystals are going to be combat rating limited, so you can't really use them until you have them. And then your scoria is the same thing. There's going to be a combat rating wall that keeps you from getting more. And then of course, you can get combat rating from your legendary gems, but those are also something that you have to buy, which basically leaves splitting up your sets to get combat rating. There is one other way that a lot of players talk about for boosting your combat rating by 500 or even 1,000 all at once.
You know the rating system can be manipulated.
And that is pre-farming the next level difficulty. And while that is a really interesting idea, there's a lot of problems with that, which I mentioned in this video here. Pre-farming is often talked about as a method for free-to-play players to rapidly boost their combat rating. But the problem is that it's really a pay-to-win mechanic, but it's kind of hidden.
Very nice.
He's better than old one because more quality and more expensive.
You see, the way that the gear is tuned is that you cannot get gear in Hell 3 that is powerful enough to fight Hell 4 content.
We have a pretty intricate matching algorithm.
The only way you can use Hell 3 gear and effectively fight in Hell 4 is by having some sort of pay to win to boost you up. I'm only briefly mentioning this because I know that there are a lot of free-to-play and low-spend players that have tried this strategy unsuccessfully and wondered if there was something wrong with them.
I don't know what's wrong with me.
And there's nothing wrong with you. You really can't do it without paying a little bit more. You see, I had triple stats on all of my primary gear and pretty dang good stats on all my secondary gear, and I was still under 3,000 combat rating. And that means that even at 780 resonance at the time, I was only getting 200 combat rating. That still put me well below the required combat rating for the next level difficulty.
We need more power.
And somebody that's free to play would be even further behind. Now, your average content creator, at least that I've seen, is going to be at least 1,500 combat rating, at least all the ones that are recommending this. And that would put them comfortably above the required combat rating for the next level difficulty. With that said, pre-farming does work well if you have put a little bit of money into the game, or if you have friends that are happy to carry you so you can collect gear ahead of time.
Bonus time is just around the corner.
Otherwise, you can just wait until you hit the appropriate difficulty, and you will see a really big boost when you start getting gear from that new difficulty. Enough about combat rating. Let's talk about sets for a minute. Sets are those wonderful pieces of green gear that drop at the end of dungeons. And when you match them together with other items of the same set, you get some crazy bonuses.
5 points bonus.
And of course, the more matching items you have, the better the bonuses get. You collect all of your set items from running dungeons, and each dungeon only drops one item from each set. So odds are you're going to end up with a lot of mismatched pieces, and usually your best combat rating gear is not necessarily the set that you're looking for. Some of these sets give terrific bonuses with only 2 pieces. For example, the Graces set will give you a 15% damage boost for certain types of skills. And you have other ones like the Vithu's Urges, which will increase your attack speed with the 4-piece set. Or you even have the War Rags of Shalbash, which is one of the most popular sets for Demon Hunters because of that extra primary attack damage. And the question that we have to determine, and that this whole video is about, is at what point does the set bonus become more valuable than combat rating?
What's better?
So here we are back at the beginning to look at how combat rating compares to set bonuses. The 3 most popular sets are going to be the Graces set, the Shao Boss set, and the Vithu set. And based off of those, we could say that anywhere from 15% up to, we'll call it 30%, is about the range of extra damage that you get from those sets. While admittedly, party composition,
we dress up in matching black pajamas,
player spec, all of those types of things can play some factor in how much of a benefit each set gives you. As a general statement, it's safe to assume that your 2-piece set bonus is worth about 15% damage, and your 4-piece set bonus is worth another 15 for a total of 30% extra damage. So this gives us a general guide of when it's better to break up your set and add combat rating. Generally speaking, if you are within 20 combat rating of the monsters you're fighting, then at least keep your 2-piece set together.
It's always trying to find that balance between too much and too little, too high and too low.
And if you have a really strong 4-piece set, I would even go as far as to being about 50 combat rating below the monsters that you're fighting. Anything past that, and you're way better off to go ahead and break up your set and add more combat rating because you'll get so much more benefit. Now, if you are at or above the combat rating of the monsters you're fighting, this gets a whole lot easier. You see, you get so little extra bonus for going above the combat rating of the monsters that you're fighting that you could be up even 300 combat rating and not even be over 15% extra damage. And generally speaking, you'll be able to get your 2 or your 4-piece set without sacrificing 300 combat rating.
It's a matching set.
So now that we understand how combat rating works, we can look at set pieces and determine whether we should swap them out or not. In this case, I'm above the combat rating of the monsters that I'm fighting, and that makes this a really easy no-brainer choice. Even though these are better attributes and higher, and it's even 3 red sockets instead of just 2, getting this extra set bonus is going to give me a much bigger boost than adding a few extra attributes and a small little boost of combat rating. If you'd like a copy of these charts, there will be a link in the description below. If you found this video to be helpful at all, please like and subscribe, and I will catch you in the next video.